We're not here to tick boxes. We're not here just to look good by putting female boxing on. Female boxing is here by its own ability and its own demand. We'll be sold out here on Saturday night. We just sold out the big room for Taylor Serrano. These are great fights, great champions, and we'll be investing heavily in women's boxing.
Eddie, we saw Frank Warren announce Joyce Zhang today. Obviously, Zhang, somebody you work with. Talks about making that fight. How easy or difficult was it?
Yeah, it was. Again, a great relationship with George Warren. They wanted to make that fight. Zhang had a situation with us where we had matching rights on his fights moving forward. I spoke to George Warren. Zhang wanted to make that fight. I was happy with the offer that was made to Zhang. Me and George got the final bits over the line. I think it's a really good fight.
This seems to be, for Zhang at least, a much more of a win-win scenario for him. If he wins, he beats somebody, Joyce, who everybody sees as a top 5 heavyweight, who cements himself back in there, whereas Joyce, not necessarily the same, but where does Zhang go if he's successful?
I mean, he's in a great position that he's at the back end of his career, but he can really punch. I mean, I think everybody, including Zhielei Zhang, is going to struggle with the work rate of Joe Joyce, and Joe Joyce will overrun Zhielei Zhang, but he can really punch with the back end. And Joe Joyce will be open, as always, to get hit flush on the chin. It's just, people talk about how good Joe Joyce's chin is. He's never really fought a massive puncher, other than potentially Daniel Dubois, that didn't really hit him on the chin, strangely, in that fight. So I think he's a massive favourite against Zhielei Zhang. But Zhang can really punch with the backhand, and if he times him onto one, I think he'll be interesting. But obviously Joe is, with his style and against a much older man, he's a big favourite in that fight.
Eddie, Filip Hrgovic, what's the latest with Filip?
He's been asked to have an interim world title fight against Andy Ruiz. We'd like to make that fight. Obviously Ruiz is looking at the Wilder fight as well. We've spoken to Tom Brown, there's some back and forth. I don't think Andy Ruiz will take the fight against Filip Hrgovic, but that's what's been ordered and we're exploring that.
In your opinion, do you... sorry.
I spoke to him and he did say to me that he's been put on him today. Do you fancy your chances around that one, and who could you see him potentially?
I think Hector Belanga is a fighter that everybody wants. Us, BBC, he obviously was with ESPN, Golden Boy. I think we've got a great plan for Hector Belanga. We can headline him, we can continue his rise, we can continue his popularity, and ultimately we can deliver him the Canelo Alvarez fight. He needs to prove against world-class opposition that he's in a position to fight Canelo Alvarez. But it's Mexico against Puerto Rico. It's a massive fight, but he still has to have those fights, and we'll be happy to give him those fights before we look at Canelo Alvarez in May 2024. Absolutely. We've done huge gates here before. He's a big star. In the right fights, Edgar Blanca is a headline attraction.
Eddie, in your opinion, Spence is officially moving up to, supposedly moving up to 154 to fight Thurman. Do you think he will end up coming back down to 47, or you think it's just like...
No, I think he's been 147 for a long time. I think he's very tight of weight, and when you look at the mileage on Errol Spence through the accident, through the eye operation and stuff like that, it's just going to be harder for him to start making weight. I don't know him personally, so I can't tell you, but I remember seeing him in Sheffield when he made 47, which was years ago, and I'm surprised he's still there. Respect to him and the way that obviously he makes that weight, but I see him moving up, and I guess 154 is his future.
If that fight does,
what weight class is that going to be? So 168 or something.
Canelo would like that fight at 175 because he feels that's where he lost it. Dimitri Bivol wants legacy. If he wants legacy in belts and can make 168 safely, which they say he can, then maybe we can make that fight at 68 to provide an undisputed opportunity for Dimitri Bivol. But if you ask Canelo Alvarez, he would say probably 175 because that's where I lost. I don't want people to think that I've brought him down. This is not Canelo Alvarez saying bring him down to 168. This is just a way to make the fight to give Dimitri Bivol more opportunity at legacy.
Eddie, your Brook has come out today and admitted, obviously, the video of him taking cocaine was himself. He apologised to his family and friends. Just your views and opinions on that, and what we can do as a sport to help fighters post-boxing.
Yeah, I don't really talk about fighters' personal life, but Kell Brook is a fighter that walks away from the sport and has a big hole in his life when you leave boxing or you leave something that you love. And boxing has been Kell Brook's life for years and years and years, and you see that when that buzz leaves you, you can put yourself in a difficult place mentally. Kell Brook is someone we have a huge history with. One thing I'll tell you about Kell Brook is he's a good person with a huge heart, and we should all support him, and his family should and will support him, of course. Boxing should support him, and I'm sure that he'll be back on the horse, and you know, like I said, he's a good man, and he's always had a pure heart. He loves the sport, and listen, maybe you'll see him return to the sport, but most of all, we hope he's happy.
Canelo's always been a great fighter for like maybe 15 years now, but you know, a couple people are saying that he seems to be losing a step. Not as great as he used to be. Do you see?
I think he's a tremendous. Look, he's been fighting with an injury for the last couple of fights. I don't think he's been at his best. But look at his fights. He fought Billy Joe Saunders, Caleb Plant, Dimitri Bivol, Canelo, and Gennady Golovkin. That's his fault. Like, people say, oh, he's slipping a little bit. No, he's just fighting the very best of the best, and he was carrying an injury as well.
36-26 pay-per-view, 32-26 pay-per-view price point for Mayweather against Aaron Chalmers in the UK. Your thoughts?
Nothing at all.
Speechless.
Joyce Zhang maybe clash with Sheffield. How will that affect your viewing numbers?
You know, you never want a clash, but ultimately you're going to see it. You've got a lot of promoters out there staging fights, and you know, for us, we want to make sure we fill up Sheffield Arena for Dalton Smith.
What's the latest with Canelo and Ryder?
We're negotiating that fight with both parties. That fight will take place in America or Mexico, and hopefully we can close it off over the next week.
Eddie, as someone who's worked with Saudi Arabia, to awaiting news on Fury Usyk, it seems like it's going to be April. Why do you think that there's been a delay on that?
Because the demands of the fighters, obviously coming off the back of coming through Ramadan, sort of, you know, keeps that March date out, and they'd want it through the back of that. I'm not sure whether it will happen in April. Maybe it'll be later, but I hope it happens. You know, it's good to have an undisputed heavyweight championship, and you know, Saudi are really the only ones that can pay that type of money for that fight.
Do you think we see it next?
Yes, but you never know.
Eddie, you're a fan of the UFC and you're a fan of Dana White. So what do you make of the slap fight?
I'm a big fan of the UFC. I'm a big fan of the UFC business. I'm a big fan of what Dana White has done in the mixed martial arts business. I do not like the slap fight. I'm not going to lie to you. I cannot believe what I'm watching. I cannot believe it's allowed. I cannot believe that we want our kids to see people striking people without being defended. Everything. Boxing's different. Boxing teaches you as a kid to protect yourself, to have respect. You know, we want to promote safety in the sport. This is really sort of just unadulterated violence, and I know that people seem to want to watch stuff like that, and broadcasters want to hit numbers, but for me this is something where someone should step in and say, look at the footage here. This is not good for anyone. So as much as I respect those guys, I have to be honest and say, not for me.
Why do you think Dana ventured into that?
I don't know. It's a strange one. But, you know, he's a revolutionary. So who knows?
Couple words on your new Australian heavyweight that you signed yesterday.
Justis Huni, fantastic fighter. You know, it's a massive signing for us in Australia. Look at our Australian roster right now. Stevie Spark, Liam Paro, Justis Huni, Ebony Bridges, Sky Nicholson. You've got Brock Jarvis, Dempsey McKean. You've got so many great fighters in our Australian roster right now, and more coming in Australia. But Justis Huni is a world-class heavyweight that can go on and really achieve in the division.
Thoughts on Coley leaving Shane McGuigan?
I didn't know he had, but I've heard he had completely, you know, just bad advice.
Joshua Buatsi?
Not bad.
What's next for him?
We're moving forward with Joshua Buatsi. We sent him a contract for his latest fight. It should be announced in the next couple of weeks.
Matching rights for him after this fight? Matching rights for him if he looks to go elsewhere?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we've had Josh from the amateurs, and looking forward to working with him in the future.